Hi, everyone. Grace to you and peace from God in the name of Jesus Christ. My name is Isaac Martinez, and my pronouns are he, him. I am a church planter and redeveloper in the Diocese of Massachusetts. I was a first-time deputy to the 81st General Convention in Louisville, and I served as an alternate to the 80th Convention in Baltimore. I'm sorry that I can't be with you live this afternoon, but I'm on a much-needed post-convention break. I also had the unexpected honor and privilege of serving as the chair of the Legislative Committee on Evangelism and the Future Church, working alongside many faithful, creative, and committed people from across the church, including fellow church planters and redevelopers. Serving as a committee chair allowed me to have a much more robust convention experience than I otherwise would have, even if it did mean I needed a crash course and many reminders about how our complicated legislative process works. Going into GC 81, I thought I knew what to expect, having been at GC 80, but boy, was I wrong. I had heard General Convention described before as an Episcopal family reunion, and I thought that was hyperbole. It turns out, it truly is an incomparable gathering of Episcopalians in all our diversity. Even if I hadn't been a deputy or alternate, I think I would have found it a highly energizing and deeply meaningful experience. So I hope that we can all find ourselves together in Phoenix in 2027 for GC 82, whether as a deputy, an exhibitor, a volunteer, or a visitor, and try not to worry too much. It is a dry heat. Overall, if I had to sum up GC 81 in one short phrase, it would be, we are facing reality. First, in the election of Bishop Sean Rowe as our next presiding bishop, we will have someone who clearly and boldly names the current state of our church as one of existential crisis. In his address to the House of Deputies after his election on the first ballot, I heard a leader who will not shy away from hard truths, inside or outside the church. I also heard someone who hasn't let current reality give way to despair, and who still has a deep wellspring of hope that comes from his faith in the gospel and in his love of Jesus. Now that we as a church, after 9 years of the incredible Michael Curry, are comfortable talking about Jesus, I trust that Sean Rowe will lead us in following him more closely. We face the reality that our governing structures, especially at the church-wide level, are top-heavy and not really fit for our purposes. Sometimes this showed up in admittedly arcane and sometimes boring changes to the rules of the House of Deputies, but it also showed up in facilitating the merger of dioceses to better equip us for the work of the gospel. We face the reality that our clergy disciplinary system was overly protective of bishops and prone to unjust delays, so we made needed changes to Title IV. We face the reality that we have arrived as a church at a consensus that my fellow gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer Episcopalians are to be fully included in every aspect of our church, and that there are some who still have a minority opinion on same-sex marriage particularly, who want to remain and need theological and canonical safety in order to do so. It was, in my opinion, Anglican comprehensiveness at its best. We continue to face the reality of our church's long complicity with systemic racism and even genocide of our indigenous siblings. Some of the holiest moments of the floor of the House involved listening to indigenous deputies from Navajo land explain why it was so important that they be reclassified as a missionary diocese and thus able to exercise self-determination in electing a Dene bishop. There were many tears, including my own, when deputies from South Dakota and Alaska and others led us in prayer and storytelling about the incredible harms done by state-sanctioned, church-operated boarding schools. And yes, we also face the reality that common prayer in the information age is different than it was in the ancient Mediterranean or when the printing press was first invented. I am hopeful that our new process for prayer book revision will foster creativity and faithful experimentation and provide a way for what I suspect is happening in many of your contexts to rise to the top and to become available across the church. All of these actions can still be found online on the General Convention's virtual binder at vbinder.net. I particularly encourage this group to go onto the vBinder and to read resolutions A044, A045, and A046, which were the resolutions that authorize, fund, and manage church planting, redevelopment, and revitalization work in this new triennium. A045 and A046 came through the committee that I chaired, and we worked closely with the committee that rewrote A044. I will go over a few details about these particular resolutions and what they do, and then let you know what to look out for in the months to come. A045, Celebrate and Support the Planting of New Episcopal Worshiping Communities, continues to provide financial and other support for the Office of Church Planting and Redevelopment, including the New Episcopal Communities grants, training, and coaching. It also creates an advisory group on church planting and revitalization that will advise the Executive Council of the Church on grants and collaborate with the presiding bishop's staff on strengthening and growing this network in particular. A046 supports starting new bicultural and multicultural ministries. For the first time, unambiguously authorizes new Episcopal Communities grants to be given to existing congregations in order to plant a new bicultural or multicultural ministry. Going back to my earlier theme, this is the church facing the reality that a good portion of our existing congregations no longer reflect the demographics of their surrounding neighborhoods. So this resolution sets aside a portion of grant money specifically for those kinds of contexts, as well as specific training, coaching, and support for folks starting bicultural or multicultural ministries within monocultural congregations. A046 also calls for the advisory group on church planting and revitalization to help oversee this work. The advisory group is what's known in church jargon as an interim body that is authorized by General Convention to complete a specific task or work on a particular problem between conventions. In a few months, there will be a church-wide announcement asking folks to apply to serve on one of the interim bodies, whether a standing commission, task forces, or even this advisory group. Most interim bodies are appointed by the presiding bishop and the president of the House of Deputies, and I encourage you all to apply. Finally, A044 develops sustainable congregational revitalization ministries, combines several resolutions to address the existential crisis that the presiding bishop-elect named. It calls on the whole church, top to bottom, in every geography, at every level, to address the trends of decline and diminished capacity of our church. It does so by empowering the presiding bishop and the president of the House of Deputies, as well as other bishops and church bodies, particularly at the church-wide level, to identify groups to collect, evaluate, disseminate, and encourage the development of data-driven resources and best practices for church planting, church revitalization, church closures, and church assets, and to work with other groups to publicize the availability of these resources to the church, our dioceses, and congregations, and to seek feedback regarding those resources that are needed and used by the widest possible variety of groups within the church. Again, it encourages similar work to be done at the diocesan level as well. I've been part of this group for a few years now, and what excites me about A044 is that so many of the conversations that we have been having among ourselves are exactly what this resolution calls for. And we now have an avenue to get those ideas, resources, and best practices, and key learnings from our successes and our failures to the wider audience of church leaders and decision makers. My friends, we are the ones that we have been waiting for, And now we have the green light from the General Convention to take this to our bishops, diocesan councils, and standing committees and ask, what are we doing about this? As I said on the floor of the House, we, church planters and redevelopers, are on the front lines of making new disciples of Christ's redeeming love and bringing that love to a badly hurting world. I am encouraged in my own ministry, knowing that each one of you is giving all you can in your own ministries. And so I am thankful that a new wind is blowing through our church, and I pray that it fills your sails and gives you hope for the road ahead. God bless you. Thank you.